Today is Friday, October 24, 2014, the 297th day of the year. There are 68 days remaining until the end of 2014. On this day in 1946, a camera on board the V-2 number 13 rocket launched from White Sands Proving Grounds in White Sands, New Mexico, takes the first photographs of Earth from the edge of the planet's outer atmosphere. The black and white image is grainy. It looks as though they went with Kodak's popular 400 ISO high-speed Tri-X 35mm film. And the surface detail is understandably lacking. But you can make out clouds, a landmass far below, and the curvature of the planet, surrounded by the black void of interplanetary space. These photographs change everything. More than 3,000 V-2s, the second generation of Vergeltungswaffe, or vengeance weapon, are launched against Allied targets during World War II, mass-produced by slave laborers in Peenemünde, Germany. At the conclusion of armed hostilities in the European theater of operations in spring 1945, Americans take possession of the remaining V-2 rockets, and during the late 1940s, transports them across the United States in scores of boxcars to New Mexico, where dozens of test launches are made from White Sands. By the mid-1950s, ever more accurate descendants of the original V-2 are put into play as possible American battlefield weapons. By the end of the decade, the weapon has intercontinental range and is capable of delivering a nuclear warhead within minutes with precision accuracy to anywhere on the planet. That's certainly a step forward. The V-2 launched on this day from New Mexico rises straight and true to a maximum height of 65 miles from the surface of the planet to the edge of outer space. The onboard camera takes a new picture every second and a half before falling back to Earth, crashing into the desert floor at a speed of 500 miles per second. The camera destroyed, but the film protected by a steel cassette. Don't try this at home. On this day in 1947, Walt Disney testifies before the House Un-American Activities Committee, naming employees who worked for him whom he believes to be communists.
I don't believe it's a political party. I believe it's an un-American thing. And the thing that I resent the most is that they are able to get into these unions and take them over. And I feel that they really ought to be smoked out and shown up for what they are, so that all the good free causes in this country, all the liberalisms that really are American, can go out without this taint of communism.
The story in 1941, Disney's in trouble. Although his 1937 animated feature Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is a huge hit for the studio, he's had to borrow heavily to get that film made. Before 1936, when production begins on the picture, studio animators get regular bonuses from 20% of profits from cartoon shorts. Now, Disney's cash-strapped. There are layoffs. Animators work overtime for no extra pay. The war in Europe since 1939 cut off almost half of Disney's foreign markets. He loses money, a lot of money, on succeeding animated features Pinocchio and Fantasia. Expensive and labor-intensive to make those pictures don't show a profit for 20 years. By 1941, studio animators are feeling pressed. It's hard to raise families on $40 a week. Union organizer Herbert Sorrell wants to bring Disney animators into his Screen Cartoonists Guild, a union formed in 1938. Disney insists on bringing the matter to a vote before the National Labor Relations Board. Sorrell threatens Disney, saying all the tools are sharpened, and unless Disney signs papers allowing his animators to unionize, he'll crush the studio into a dust bowl. Heavy-handed? You bet. Disney feels betrayed when one of his animators, Art Babbitt, questions Disney's authority. Disney says Babbitt is rallying his staff against him.
Hope I'm not bothering you here, but I don't think you ought to criticize Mr. Disney, who we all know was a great American, a patriot, a cultural icon, if you will.
Another icon. Look, I'm not criticizing. I love Uncle Walt as much as anybody, but these are facts. He named names. He sold people out who worked for him.
Especially coming from you, considering your own history.
What history? What are you talking about?
Pretty much everybody has figured it out about you.
Figured what out?
I think you know what I'm not so obliquely referring to here, your so-called youthful transgressions, as you continue to use as a pretty transparent excuse, you commie bastard.
Can we talk about this stuff later?
So makes you uncomfortable, does it?
No, it's just that I'm right in the middle of...
in the middle of talking smack about a great American.
It's history, pal, history, well documented. He ran a sweatshop. The union had a right to strike. This stuff happened 70 plus years ago, and the man's been dead for 50 years.
Well, there you go again. I don't know. I just think the decent thing to do might be to give it a decent interval of time and consideration before you go off all half-cocked like that.
Can I just finish this?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry, man. Am I in your way?
Kind of, since you ask. Yeah, you are.
All right. Gee.
Disney fires Art Babbitt, calling him a troublemaker and a Bolshevik. The strike against the Disney studio begins the next day, May 29, 1941, led by Sorrell and Babbitt. Disney takes out a full-page ad in Variety, the industry trade paper, saying, "I'm positively convinced that communistic agitation, leadership, and activities have brought about this strike." The strike lasts 5 weeks. Disney leaves town to tour Latin America as a goodwill ambassador for the State Department. A federal mediator is brought in, agrees with the Guild's position, and management grants wage increases, other concessions. In 1947, Disney's called in to testify before the House Committee on Un-American Activities and investigating communist infiltration in Hollawood. Disney, an enthusiastic, friendly witness, naming names of people who worked for him as communists, which he knows will result in those workers being blacklisted, thrown out of work, and any possibility of making a living. Of Screen Cartoonist Guild leader Herbert Sorrell, known as left-leaning because of his pro-labor activism, Disney says he believes Mr. Sorrell was a communist because of all the things that I had heard and having seen his name appearing on a number of commie-front things. That's Disney's language. For Disney's part, he's right. Sorrell is taking money from communist front organizations to support his union activities. In 1953, Sorrell testifies in a separate lawsuit, says while he was never a communist, he does feel free to spend their money. Also, Disney names animators David Hilberman and William Pomerantz, formerly in his employ, as communists. Hilberman and Pomerantz leave the studio after the strike. Hilberman is blacklisted throughout the 1950s, has to go to England to find work. This struggle between labor and management is as old, at least, as the Industrial Revolution. U.S. Congressman William Clay, Sr. of Missouri, speaking to the AFL-CIO Federation of Government Employees in 1975, says, "If you object to unfair treatment, you're an ingrate. If you seek equity and fair consideration, you're uppity. If you demand union security, you're un-American. If you rebel against repressive management tactics, they will lynch and scalp you. But if you're passive and patient, they'll take advantage of both." From Rutland, Vermont, this is Richard Alcott speaking.